guys, you're watching the next episode of Fun Time Good Show. Aren't you lucky? Can we get a round of applause for me? Yeah, we were pretty good. Let me adjust that pic. The people at home want to see my beautiful face. Got to make sure it's perfect. Let's see. There you go. Okay, you're welcome. Today in studio, we've got NORML, a bunch of representatives from NORML, the campaign to legalize marijuana, at least decriminalize it. We'll see if we can go from there. And then in studio today, we've also got Nick Cowley and Paco Estrada are going to be performing a few songs live. I'm hoping they're going to be good songs. I'm really hoping. So today's going to be a long show, so instead of running the intro and everything else, I think we should just get straight to it. So, guys, you would wave at the cameras. Now we're going to be going around right here. So we've got, let's see, in studio, on your far right side of your screen, we've got Max. Then, of course, we've got Jay, Sean, and Tristan. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
So worried I'm going to mispronounce that one.
Got him right.
Okay, gentlemen, all your mics are on. Feel free to...
Test.
There you go. And that's
Hello.
Cannabis.
great. You've been on the show more than anybody else. You don't have to test the mics.
Okay, fine.
So, let's see, guys. Tell us a little bit about NORML.
So NORML was founded in 1970 by a bunch of attorneys out in Washington, D.C., the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. There are chapters all over the country, actually all over the world. There are NORML chapters springing up. And here in Dallas-Fort Worth, we have the biggest and what I believe to be the best NORML chapter, DFW NORML. And we were founded in 2005.
How do you judge the best? Do you guys fight to the death with other NORML?
Well, there's that. There's the NORML Hunger Games that we
Okay.
attend on a quarterly basis, but also we have what I understand to be probably the largest membership.
Okay.
And I think that we're really good about providing opportunities for people to get involved, where maybe sometimes other NORML chapters, they're a little bit too closed off. Kind of hard to break into that closed group or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think we do a really good job of being inclusive here at DFW NORML and finding those people who really have the time and passion and commitment to be able to contribute effectively to a cause like ours, and to mentor those people into people who become truly effective marijuana activists.
Now, when did the Dallas chapter start? I'm assuming since it started out in, you said California, correct?
It started in D.C.
D.C., I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter was founded in 2005.
Okay, so fairly recently. And what are some steps y'all take? So let's begin there. You're obviously working towards decriminalization, legalization of marijuana. What are some of the things you do?
Okay, well, so one of the things that we do is encourage people to get really involved by getting to know their representatives and their legislators and basically the people who are supposed to be representing their point of view in political office. So we've got two of our most well-trained people doing that, Tristan Tucker here and Max Davidson, who they go and sit down with, parents or patients, people who maybe are a little bit nervous about talking to their representative about something illegal like marijuana, and kind of coach them through it and kind of help them through it. So it's a really effective use of everybody's time. So, guys, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like Sean said, I'm Tristan Tucker. I'm the deputy director. A lot of what we do is encouraging people to get out and be active within their communities. What I tend to tell people is that NORML is kind of the cultural side of the drug war. We're fighting to change a lot of the stereotypes that are associated with people who consume cannabis, and we're out there trying to educate people that you don't necessarily have to be a degenerate to support changing drug policy laws or to consume any drug yourself.
Well, since you're trying to, like how Prohibition did with alcohol, there was, most people drink alcohol. And the idea that they try to turn that into a degenerate act, if you drink alcohol, you're a heathen,
it's immoral.
Or, it's immoral, or something like that. And they try to make it a battleground, not about maybe health, which is something maybe you could possibly argue about alcohol, but something a moral stance, which is what a lot of people treat marijuana about as well. That they don't really look at what it does, its health benefits, or any negative aspects, but for them it's simply just a moral argument. How do you feel about that?
Well, the temperance movement started in the late 19-teens, so this has been an ongoing trend for over 100 years now. And essentially what temperance is a kind of a deviance from traditional conservatism, where people say, oh, well, you're an adult, you should be able to make adult decisions for you. And whatever those decisions are don't really become criminal or a criminal act until you're affecting another person.
Right, now we're talking John Stuart Mill's, we're talking philosophy of what is moral, and of course John Stuart Mill's argued that it's only immoral if you're hurting somebody else against their will.
Absolutely,
And then
or
if, as an
damaging the
adult,
property.
right, or damaging the property. And anything you do to yourself shouldn't be considered immoral, as long as you're, an adult who's ideally educated yourself on the subject, but you don't have to. If you want to
Absolutely.
ignorantly wander into something, that's your own fault.
Right, and the temperance movement, in its original intent was obviously for alcohol, and a lot of the things that we see as cannabis activists is that at least with alcohol, we Americans were asked if we wanted to prohibit alcohol, and we as Americans decided, hey, we want to prohibit alcohol.
We want to try it.
Exactly. But with marijuana, we were never given that option. We were never said, hey, do you guys want to prohibit this, or
Hey,
do you
can we
guys
talk
just
a
want to
little bit
lock
about-
people up?
Can we talk a little bit about the history of how marijuana became illegal? Because I don't know if a lot of people at home don't know. A lot of the founding fathers grew not only tobacco, but cannabis and hemp as well. So, a big chunk of our history was based on pot. Now, not necessarily that they all smoked it or anything, but cannabis can be used. Hemp can be used for a lot of other things too, and it's a very durable crop. So, how did it come about that it was made illegal?
Now, let's give Max an opportunity here. We've kind of hogged the mic.
Hemp was actually legal. It was made illegal in 1937 with the rest of marijuana, but then was made legal again during World War II. You can actually Google something called Hemp for Victory. It's a video our government put out to encourage people to grow hemp because of its broad use. It was able to make rope. We were able to make polymers, fibers. Hemp was the direct competitor to paper. William Randolph Hearst, who was very rich and powerful back in the early 20th century, he was the one who made policy and controlled policy with his money, and hemp would have put him out of business because he just I believe purchased a large property of trees to cut down, and if with hemp you would never have to cut down another tree, and you could do it cheaper. So that, and combined with the reefer madness of the 30s, they just outlawed it all. But it was actually grown again.
And so just like today, and I guess all of human history when coming to politics, we see that what's not necessarily what's good for the people is what's enacted in law. It's good sometimes for individuals. Those individuals obviously lobby for whatever benefits them, but it can end up hurting a lot of other people. I'd like to talk a little bit about, if anybody could explain for the people at home, the difference between what people call marijuana and hemp.
Hemp is, in a very condensed version, cannabis that you consume with the psychoactive component is the female plant, whereas hemp is a male plant. And the very, very basic difference between the two is that hemp produces about 0.03% THC, which is the psychoactive component of marijuana, which is, when you're really talking about medical properties, 0.03 is nothing.
Trace elements.
Exactly, it's a trace element because it's in the same genus of plant, whereas marijuana is the plant that produces the actual psychoactive component.
And so when you hear about marijuana farms, those are all female plants?
Absolutely, and if the cops really wanted to combat marijuana growth, then they would probably be smart and just plant a bunch of hemp, because then it would pollinate it, and bam, now there's no more wild growing smokable marijuana.
Well, don't go giving them ideas. Come on, man.
No, I'm just trying to give them some hints, because I'd rather see hemp growing than nothing growing.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'll tell you what, let's continue down this path for a little bit, because I'd like to know a little bit more about the botany of the plants themselves. Can you all explain a little more about the plant itself?
What were you looking to...
Just kind of in general, just for anybody at home that doesn't really know. Like, a lot of people may not know anything about this. They may go, oh, just marijuana is illegal, so I don't know anything about it. But I find the process, we ran a beer show, Jay and I did, and we found the process of how beer was made, what it was comprised of. Most people don't know. You just go and you drink beer. And so I think just knowing anything about it is fascinating to me.
Well, cannabis has come a long way in the past, I'm going to say 20 or 30 years, even the past 10 years. Back in the day, it was just you smoked weed and it got you stoned. Now, there's people, it's a science. There's sativas, there's indicas, there's ruderalis, then there's the high CBD strains. To break it down, you have cannabis sativa, which is a more uppity, it gives you energy, it's more creative.
Right,
effects.
there's two main strains, I guess you call them, or types of weed. And one is the depressive type.
That's the indica.
That's the indica.
Couch lock, makes you tired, good for pain relief.
Right, and then the other one is
Sativa.
Sativa.
And that wakes you up.
And I found that used to, I guess still do, maybe have anxiety problems, and one of those is known for helping with anxiety, and one of those tends to heighten it. Exactly. Do y'all know anything about that?
It all depends on the patient usually.
Is it just person by person?
There's also hybrids as well where they breed the two of them together. And then there is, though I was talking about the high CBDs, something that's actually being researched for anxiety and such, was usually a regular marijuana plant that was bred with a hemp plant to get the lower THC levels and maintain the CBD levels. Because cannabidiol, CBD, is another cannabinoid that's in the last 3 years, it's the big thing. No one knew what it was 10 years ago. And
I like the idea of that we were talking about, that it's more scientific, because what that also does is make it safer, in the sense, just like during Prohibition, when you were having to make bathtub gin and you were cutting it with gasoline, lucky if it was water. Usually it wasn't. It was alcohol or rubbing alcohol or gasoline or something like that. So when it's not something that can be regulated, when it's strictly on the black market, that's really kind of when it's the most dangerous, because everything has to be kept in the dark. And so one of the benefits, I think, of making it legal and regulated is that you can have companies, you're responsible for the product you're putting out. And if you're responsible, that also means that you can get sued for putting out an inferior product quality or something that does harm people. And so and people are going to do whatever they want, whatever their vices are, they're going to do them whether they're legal or not. I think we can pretty much all agree that all of human history, very few people have ever said, oh, it's against the law, I'm just going to stop doing it for that reason. So I like that it makes it a lot safer for the individual. And really, even if you don't smoke, but you have friends or a kid or a family member that does, whether for medical reasons or not, I would think their safety should be more your concern than making them feel like they're doing something, immoral. What do you think about that?
I fully agree with that, actually. I think that the more people realize that this isn't just about getting high, it's a whole series of topics. The one that everybody thinks about is, simply getting high when you consume marijuana. But, like you said yourself, you got really bad anxiety. So do I. There's no way I could come and calmly sit behind a microphone and do a show like this without taking some sort of something to help get my head right, So what do? Am I supposed to go and chug a couple beers and sound like a drunken idiot on this show? Or do I instead maybe take a couple of puffs of truly medicinal marijuana, balance myself out, and actually be able to speak clearly and know what I'm trying to communicate to you and be able to represent myself the way that I know I want to. And so I think that the more people who know that it's not just about THC, there's this CBD, there's all these different components of this plant, that just because THC may not help you, that doesn't mean some other part of this plant may not help you, or your daughter or your son. A lot of us who have been in this movement for a while, we've had friends who have just, honestly, they've had to pick up their entire lives and move out of their home state of Texas, the place where they thought that they were going to die, and leave so they could take their kids somewhere where they can get medical marijuana without having to risk losing their children. That's sad. Those laws aren't protecting people anymore. They're running them away. They're hurting us, and they're turning us into a prison state while also bankrupting us. So it's just a shame.
And one of the things that I guess upsets me is I'm a full-grown adult. I don't understand why I'm being told if I want to relax with some sort of, inhibitor, it has to be alcohol. Why? I don't understand why somebody is telling, or pharmaceuticals, why that has to be the case. I mean, alcohol is not regulated through doctors. I could see if someone make the argument, hey, you can have liquor because that one goes through a doctor like they do with pharmaceutical pills. Maybe that's some kind of weird argument somebody could make. But the idea that one is alcohol, which contributes to more deaths in America
and violence just generally.
Yeah, that I'm forced, if I want to make a legal choice to how I want to relax, I'm forced to pick the one that causes liver disease, that can cause traffic, automobile accidents. Have I been drinking? Because all of a sudden
it kind of sounds like it.
But it's weird to me that as a full-grown adult, I'm being told by my government I have to choose the one that I think is worse for me if I want to do it legally. That just seems like a very...
It's funny. They funnel us with the laws, actually. They funnel us into the products and behaviors that they want us to use and not do. And some of us choose to not participate in that funnel and do our own thing. And then we recognize that our health improves or some other aspect of our life improves because we're able to get ourselves under control because we have something to kind of help us balance out a little bit.
If there's one thing y'all want the public to know, or especially people that don't deal with marijuana on a regular basis, what would that be?
I think that one of the most important things is that a huge amount of support for this movement comes from people who don't consume cannabis. A huge, huge amount. A lot of the money that comes in this movement comes from people who are not tokers.
Yeah, I think there's the assumption that if you want it legalized, you must be a user. And for me, as a non-user nowadays, there are so many more reasons I want this to be legal, from the taxes, the safety, to just the moral argument. If you should be able to choose what you want to go home and put into your system.
Well, as an organization in 2015, we're really pushing for medical marijuana, and that's really something that I think that this state should be focusing on, because a lot of times, as you were just talking about with the stereotypes, is people only see the people who are working in the cannabis movement as the people who are, like you said, actively using cannabis or smoking cannabis. But the people that we're actually fighting for, like you said, this is something that people need to know, are the people who aren't smoking marijuana, because this policy touches people in more ways than just prohibiting marijuana. I know someone who doesn't orally or eat or smoke marijuana, but she uses a cream on her wrist, and she's been getting shots for years, for at least 20 years, getting cortisone shots in her wrist. She tried this cream for rheumatoid arthritis, hasn't had to have medicine, hasn't had to have shots, hasn't had to have anything in over a month. And it started on the first time that she tried it, the first time she put cream on. And those are the kind of people that we're really fighting for, the patients and the children that need this.
Yeah, she sounds like a real creamer. Yeah, so that's that's the new term I'm doing for stoner. But if you rub the cream on,
creamer.
A creamer. I think that's going to take off like nobody's business.
But at the end of the day, though, where we really are fighting for an army of children, there's about 100 children that we fight for currently that have come forward to us that need access to medical marijuana, because if they don't get it, they're going to have to leave the state. And those people aren't smoking joints, they aren't getting high. Most of these parents have never even taken a puff of marijuana in their entire lives. But they're so desperate for answers and so desperate to get something that can help their child that they're willing to do this. For a lot of these parents, it's either medical marijuana or cutting half their child's brain out. That's what.
Wow. With like epileptic seizures and stuff, I've heard that they're starting to find that THC is a pretty good inhibitor.
THC, CBD, all the cannabinoids, they work 100 times better than the current anti-epileptic drugs, and none of the side effects.
And they work synergistically. No CBD only legislation, whole plant legislation only.
I agree, and what that means is there's places in this country right now where they're trying to move the laws forward with regard to medical marijuana, but they're trying to do what's known as CBD-only legislation. So that means that they're trying to say, well, you can have medical marijuana, quote-unquote, but it has to come in the form of, this pill, such as Marinol, which is 100% THC, which nobody should take that, in my opinion. Unless you're looking to have a really damn good time, I don't need 100%.
It's really fun.
I don't need 100% THC pill, and I've been consuming cannabis for a long time. So what this CBD only does is basically it confuses the argument. It makes people think that CBD is the medical component of it, whereas THC, while it is psychoactive, it has its own medical qualities too. So this plant, you need the whole plant. It needs to work synergistically to get the maximum benefit from it. And so that's why what we push for here at DFW NORML and NORML all over is what's known as whole plant legislation. We want access to the whole plant. We don't want to just be able to go and get it from a dispensary, one dispensary every 300 miles or however much the population is, or only for qualifying conditions or whatever. We want, if a doctor says that I could benefit from marijuana, even if it's only because I've got headaches, I need to be able to go and get it from a safe place. There needs to be some competition to make sure that the price stays good. I need to be able to access the entire plant. I need to know that it was grown around here. I need to know that I'm not going to get a whole bunch of mold or mildew or mites or something to ingest in my already compromised immune system. And more importantly, I need to know that I can grow that plant myself, because I shouldn't just be limited to what's available at a dispensary.
Well, sure, just like was it Carter that legalized home brewing? Same thing. People said, look, there's no reason I shouldn't be able to do this if I'm doing it safely. Oh, you know what? Again, if it's not safe and it's me, I should be able to make my own beer unsafely, as long as there's no one else in the house if it blows up, But
Well,
that
you
should-
really screwed up your beer making if it's exploding.
It's like the meth lab.
I'm not gonna lie. You have a bigger chance of explosion with like a distillery, but
Right.
if you're brewing beer and it explodes, you done fucked
Well, I'm
up.
assuming, based on every cop show I've ever seen, if it's any kind of illegal thing, it'll like a meth lab.
You're Breaking Bad
It
status.
will
You're
blow up.
Breaking
Yeah,
Bad status.
exactly. So, but for me, I mean, yeah, shouldn't I be able to make that at home? If I want to make alcohol at home, I can. If I want to grow cannabis at home, I should be able to. Guys, we're going to take a break in a minute, but before we do, I'd like you to mention something. What's a good, either some form of media that you could recommend for people to get their hands on? Like, I would recommend Reefer Madness, mainly because you will laugh your ass off at how stupid marijuana is portrayed. And if there's anything, if you want to see a great way of how to convince, like what is it called, reverse psychology.
Mm-hmm.
You watch that film, you're not going to think pot's bad at all. You're going to go, this is retarded that people actually even thought this. I'm kind of.
I'm a big fan of the. You see it floating around on Facebook every now and then, like this person snorted one marijuana at a party,
Yeah,
and then became a
exactly.
homosexual and died.
Those are
One
some of my
marijuana.
favorites. Yeah, one marijuana.
Never
So-
inject the marijuana.
So I know they can go to your website, but do you have any? Is a movie, a documentary, a
There's
book?
so many.
A rockumentary?
There's
Is there a musical one?
There's a documentary called "The Union: The Business Behind Getting High," and that's what brought me into getting involved with cannabis activism. It's a really great movie. It shows kind of the perspective both from the law enforcement side, the business side, and the former dealer side. So you kind of get a 360-degree view of what's really going on in the business side of marijuana. And I think if I'm remembering right, Sean, that's the one where they go up to Canada and they have like 26 trains laid down in the snow on top of this mountain. It was like the largest underground grow op in Canadian history.
Yeah, I mean, and they buried a train, and they were growing weed in a train for who even knows how long? It's ridiculous. So
I just want to see that so I can like model my supervillain layer after it.
That's
That sounds really cool.
Jane is supervillain lair. He's, you need to start putting money aside if you're wanting to realistically do that.
I have been.
Have you?
Yeah.
Excellent. Are you going to go with your face on the front of a building or mountain type thing?
I've got
Which
3
I've seen
payments
it-
left on my volcano.
That's
and then I
supervillains
can
don't
start.
save money. What?
they spend it on ridiculous,
Exactly.
We steal money.
They
Rube
steal it.
Goldberg type machines that never work.
Yeah, right.
$1 million.
But one documentary I would encourage people to watch out for, it's the sequel to The Union, The Business Behind Getting High. It's called The Culture High. It's about to come out. We're actually going to host a screening here in Dallas-Fort Worth in the next couple of months for it. It's going to be extraordinary. It's got a bunch of great people, including Ron Paul, Snoop Dogg, people like that are going to be in it. So it's going to be really excellent. So go and check out The Culture High, watch some previews, and we're going to be screening it here very soon.
Very cool. Max, do you have anything you recommend?
I would recommend The NORML Life. I think that came out in 2011. Very informative. Talks about NORML. Talks about everything about marijuana. I think it's actually one of the first documentaries that talks about cannabidiol as well.
Yep.
CBDs.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have a few other people from NORML sit down, and they're probably going to say the exact same thing, just in different voices, because we really want to drive some of these points home. But gentlemen, thank you very much. And it's something I feel very strongly about personally, both from a philosophical, moral point of view, that I don't like other people telling me what I can do as an adult. But also from, like, it really is helping children. It's not just for adults. These are people that aren't able to defend themselves legally. They don't. Some of them, have parents, but not representatives in a court. And it's important that those people are taken care of as well.
That's why we're here. I mean, that's what's going on. I mean, without us, there's no one to speak for them. It's only the parents, and some of these parents have never spoken to a legislator before in their life. They don't know what their power is, what they can do, and I wish they would, because the parents are the ones that are winning this battle for us. They're the ones who are pushing the ball forward for us, because right now, we've been shouting the science to Texas legislators for 20 years, and that doesn't do anything. But when you show a child, when you melt the ice around the heart, and you see there's a child suffering and you can stop it.
It's a person, not a statistic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're not just a pothead.
Right. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with the members of the DFW NORML.
Turning 2 years, I watch time as it passes by under this desert sky. Bombs bursting the air. Sleepless nights on this desert floor. I forgot what we're fighting for. I guess I'll get used to it. You'll have to get used to it. If you're gonna break down and cry, I'll give you both of my shoulders. I hope you still feel alive when the war's finally over. Yeah, sometimes it eats me alive, but I'll try to stay sober, and soon I will sleep by your side when the war's finally over. When the war's finally over. There's so much that's changed. When they told me Carter had passed away, I knew things wouldn't be the same. Miles and miles from home. Every letter you sent to me, it gets me through one more day. I guess I'll get used to it. You'll have to get used to it. If you're gonna break down and cry, I'll give you both of my shoulders. I hope you still feel alive when the war's finally over. Yeah, sometimes it eats me alive, but I'll try to stay sober, and soon I will sleep by your side when the war's finally over. When the war's finally over. Without you, I feel so alone, frozen in time, just living in the dark. Your love's what I'm fighting for, so I can come home and you can be mine. I guess I'll get used to it. You'll have to get used to it. If you're gonna break down and cry, I'll give you both of my shoulders, and I hope you still feel alive when the war's finally over. Yeah, sometimes it eats me alive, but I'll try to stay sober, and soon I will sleep by your side when the war's finally over. When the war's finally over. When the war's finally over. When the war's finally over.
All right, we're back with some of the members from NORML, and that stands for Know Our Rights, Mammals, Linguistics. Am I right? Is that what it is?
That is absolutely
Close.
correct.
I'm so good at this. No, tell us what NORML. I'm assuming it stands for something since it's missing a letter.
NORML stands for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Law. That's what we do. We're working to reform the laws here in Texas.
I get it. It's the first letter of each word.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure that out too. They took the first letter of each word, put it together, made a word from it.
You're the first ones to ever do that.
Yeah,
Wow, you guys should copyright that. That could be a big thing.
We should.
yeah, that's pretty cool. So, you know what? Contact the ACLU and see if they have it. Wait a minute.
Hey, wait.
So, John, you're back on the show with us. Let's introduce the young lady here, the new one.
Okay, I'm Loretta Labrada. I'm the Director of Finance with DFW NORML.
Labrada?
Labrada, yes.
Wow,
Loretta.
that's it.
Loretta.
Loretta.
Labrada.
Man, I was like, that's a great stage name.
I just made that up just now.
And tell us, I'm sorry, your position again. I'm sorry.
I'm the Director of Finance with DFW NORML.
And so what do you do exactly?
What do I do?
I assume it handles money, but I mean,
Whoops.
what? Unprofessional.
All right. Basically, keep the books and records. Make sure everything gets recorded as it's supposed to be recorded. Make sure our tax returns are done on time. Make sure we're complying with all of the things we need to comply with as far as the state of Texas is concerned and the IRS.
And you need money for...
marijuana.
Well, I mean, right. No, I mean, obviously, you'll have T-shirts, wristbands, but you spend most of your money is spent how?
Advertising, mainly.
Advertising, raising awareness. We've done 2 billboards. Is it 2? Yeah. 3 billboards in the last 6 months, and those they cost a lot of money, but they get a lot of exposure. People see our name out there. They look us up on the web, and they get involved. We sponsor all different kinds of events. We've been involved in like trash pickups and things like that. Really, it's just the money is used to further our cause through advertising, through marketing, through outreach to different communities, having events within the community, different types of musical genres and stuff, where we can introduce people that wouldn't necessarily hear our message to what we're all about.
Now, this is a question I thought of during the break that was in no way affected by Nick Cowley, but what's the most difficult obstacle you'll have to overcome?
Man, honestly, one of the the most difficult obstacles that we have is getting people to actually contact their legislators and getting people to have a constant presence in their legislator's office. And what that really means is that, by the way, if you want to get a hold of your legislator, I've got to put this plug in. Go to Google, type in who represents me in Texas, and it'll bring up the website. You type in your area code, your address, and it'll pull up who exactly represents you. Contact them, tell them you want to legalize marijuana in Texas, because spending $26,000 on non-violent offenders in prison and $6,000 on innocent children in school doesn't make any sense.
And let's remember, a lot of companies have direct access to these people. I mean, they are either hiring lobbyists or they have dedicated PR people that are making these calls. And you as an individual, I mean, it's your responsibility to make sure your voice is heard as well. I mean, you can't really blame the politician if they're like, well, I took 300 phone calls this month and every single one of them was for somebody wanting me to keep marijuana illegal. You can't really hold their feet to the fire if you're not calling in and making your voice heard as well. And so it is your responsibility as an American and as a Texan to call in and tell them, no, you're representing me. You know, I pay my taxes so that you get to sit there, and this is what I want you to do.
You know, I think that a lot of Americans have forgotten that freedom comes with responsibility, and that responsibility is that without you constantly watering the tree of liberty with a little bit of blood from patriots, that our liberty goes away.
That's a good line.
It is a quote from Thomas Jefferson. But so, you know, without our American citizens and Texans getting out there and contacting these people, if you're not making these calls and you're not on the phone and writing these people, you don't have a right to complain about nothing going your way. And that's really how you have to view it, because if you're not being a proactive, responsible American, and you're not fighting for your freedom, I'm not going to fight for your freedom either.
And let me tell you, here's something that's personally bugged me for quite a long time. Whenever I hear any politician give a speech and talk about how they're a leader, I cringe. I don't want you to be a leader. You're a representative. I'm a leader in the community. I have a web show. I think I know a little bit about leading the community. But no, you're representative. Your job is to do what we tell you to do. And I really hate that role has been reversed. I just think that, if you talk to the first generation of Americans, they would have that idea of, well, no. You're not a leader. We're the farmers. We're the community. We want laws passed that benefit us as individuals and for our community. Don't put yourself up on that pedestal. And it really makes me sick sometimes when politicians think that they're supposed to be leading us as opposed to the other way around. And I really wish we would take a lot of time to reverse that, that make politicians understand your job is to go and do what we tell you to do, to vote the way we tell you to vote. We're not asking you to set up initiatives that we don't want. We're not asking you to make things illegal we don't want. We're not asking you to put people in jail that we don't want put in jail. And I just think that's a kind of an important component to this as well, is that we're being led around and treated as if we're responsible to the government when it's really obviously it's supposed to be the other way around. The system is set up to work for us originally. And now it seems like the system kind of abuses and takes from us to continue running the system, and it's become autonomous, a bureaucracy, where really it's there for our convenience, is really what the government should be, is something that's supposed to make our life easier. Mm-hmm. But as people that deal with that all day, do you find that's the case?
Yeah, not at all. And this is one of the things. I spoke at a veterans conference in Austin back in July, and that was one of the things that really stood out to me is exactly what you're talking about. You have to remind your representative that that person isn't a leader in the community, that he is a follower, and the person that he's supposed to follow is his boss, and that boss is everybody who's out in the community. It's the people at this table and the hosts of this show. So,
don't call him a boss. His ego's too big already.
Hush, slave! Where's the mic? There we
I've
go.
been muted.
So, that's really the kind of mentality that we really need to get back into. And, we have to explain to these people that I don't care what your morality is as a representative. Your morality is irrelevant to what society's morality is. And whenever Texans are polling at 80% want to decriminalize marijuana, or 60% want to institute a medical marijuana program, your morality isn't lining up with your state at that point.
When I hear politicians say that like it's a good thing, like I'm going to stand for this because, no, not if we all disagree with you. If you hate abortions and you think they're the worst thing ever, and you go to Washington D.C. and 80% of us vote that it should be legal, your ass better vote legal. I don't care if you personally, and that's part of the job. Why is it, any other job, if you said, what is it? Nurses can't turn down people because of their religious. Doctors can't send away people, but for some reason we let our politicians, their personal values come between what's best for this country. It's just kind of unbelievable. But that's a whole other thing. Tell us some fun stories. We've been so serious for a while. I'd like to hear some fun stories that have happened while working with NORML.
Well, one thing that we did recently that has just been awesome for us, we recently had an all-day event at Joe Pool Lake that we called Lake and Bake. It was our second annual Lake and Bake. We were at Lake Grapevine. Lake Grapevine last year, and the event grew significantly in 1 year. Last year we had probably around 200 to 400 people.
Like the mighty cannabis plant. It grew. Yes.
Yeah, we just had to put them near water. Turns out. But yeah, we had like 200 or 400 people there last year, and then this past event we had around 6 or 7, maybe even 800 people. So It was a huge growth in 1 year over one event. And we had people there all day. They were cooking, they were bringing their kids out, celebrating freedom, so to speak, very openly. And we had no problems with law enforcement or wardens or anything. We had 600-800 people out there, a lot of whom were openly breaking the law, and 0 arrests were made.
I mean, I found, with the exception of, you're always going to get, in any group of grapes, bunch of grapes? Is that what they are?
Bunch of grapes.
Okay. There's always going to be one bad one. And you're always going to come across the cop that wants to use violence or pulls their gun too early. But most of them are pretty reasonable people that when they take off their uniform and they go home, they don't really have a problem with pot. They don't, they think the laws are just as ridiculous. And it's nice to remind people sometimes that it's not always the cops that are your enemy. It's the laws that we're paying them to enforce. And unfortunately, as long as there's still a law there, your tax dollars are going to tell that guy, hey, you're supposed to arrest me for this, And so the problem is changing the laws to reflect what kind of society we want to live in, and not just take out the aggression on an individual who probably agrees with you. I mean, when they had what was it? When everybody was standing around in those cities, what was it called? Occupy.
Sit-ins?
The Occupy movement. There were a lot of times where officers would go off duty, change clothes, and come right back out and sit in the movement. And then they'd leave. They'd put on their uniform, and they'd stand on the other side of the line. And so I think it's an important distinction to make that, obviously, like you said, y'all were there. Most of them are not going to give. I mean, they understand there's so many more important things that you need to spend your budget on. You know, like catching real criminals.
Well,
and real
I mean,
crimes.
to be fair, I think that the reason we don't get hassled at our events is because no police department in the state of Texas wants the negative PR of coming in and trying to arrest hundreds of people who are otherwise in compliance with the law, who are,
once again, nonviolent. You're not committing any crimes. Yeah.
Nonviolent. But I also want to urge people to be cautious. Cops are not the enemy. I'll be the first to say that cops are not the enemy, but there are cops out there who think of you as the enemy because you are breaking the law. And so you've got super cops out there who want to fight crime. They don't want to make their community safer. They want to fight crime. And as long as marijuana is illegal, some cops are going to consider you just frankly a violent criminal,
right.
even if you just have.
And you should be aware of that, right? And absolutely, I don't want to say the treat.
And they're watching. They're definitely watching. If you use Facebook, don't say anything on Facebook that could potentially, land you in some trouble. We've got an attorney here at DFW NORML who likes to make the joke that don't send anything in a text message or post on Facebook that you wouldn't put on a billboard across the street from the police department.
That's very true.
Because obviously none of that's secure, and unfortunately a lot of our people, they get so comfortable coming out to our events and being around hundreds of people that they get cocky and they lose the mindset that it's still very much illegal here. Cannabis is becoming more recognized here in Texas. Texas is becoming a friendlier state on the topic, but the laws are still what they are. And so people just really have to be cautious and careful when they're out there. Don't assume that just because that police officer may look like a nice guy that he's not going to flip the script on you as soon as he smells marijuana on you. People just really need to be prepared to know their rights, be prepared to flex their rights, and have a damn fine attorney that they can call whenever they get their rights violated.
Good. And with some of the states legalizing it, what has that done for y'all? I mean, as a group that's actively pushing to see some states, legalize it, I assume that's helped your cause in some way. I mean, if nothing else, just now people are looking like, you're not the outcasts who are trying to push for something that's illegal everywhere. Now you've got states backing you up on this. Yeah,
and it's funny because for so long I kept hearing that is never going to happen in this country or in this state. And now we have 2 states that have. And has anybody said that's never going to happen to you since November 2012? No. Not to me either, and I talk about this a lot. And so it completely changed the thought of what is possible for people. It completely changed the playing field. So now...
But it is true, because you're right. I heard that a lot, even if it's just about Texas. Not over the whole...
Oh, never going to happen.
Now I don't even hear about Texas.
But now almost everybody has 2017 or 2019 on their lips. So, it's... After Colorado and Washington, it went from being it'll never to, hey, has it started yet?
Yeah.
And another thing that we've noticed with Colorado and with Washington is that all of the spikes in crime and the spikes in, dangerous neighborhoods around dispensaries and all that kind of stuff, that never happened. Right. Crime has gone down, as well as opioid addictions and deaths have gone down in those states that have medical
treatment. You don't have to be scared of, whereas before you might be scared about going to a hospital. Now you can go talk to your doctor. Hey, my anxiety's getting worse instead of better. Oh, well, then let's switch the strain. I mean,
well, safe access in itself actually helps wane addiction. And one of the talking points that LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, often has is that Switzerland has a free and legal heroin program. And while I would never advocate for anybody to use heroin, one of the really
pretty good, man. It gets you high.
One of the really interesting statistics that came out of them legalizing free heroin was that they the average addiction population in any established first world country sits right around 0.8 to 1% of the population being addicted, the total population. And whenever Switzerland legalized free heroin clinics, they actually saw their addicted population drop 0.5%. to the lowest addicted population in the world. So, that's a very causal relationship there, showing that, hey, we did this, we made a proactive step, and this was the result. And then you can also see that same type of thing emulated time after time after time in Venezuela and Portugal and every other country that's decriminalized or legalized. You take the sin out of this, you make it so that it's safer to access, it's safer to use, it's safer to, everything about it's safer. You're not having to get this stuff in an alley that's cut with gasoline anymore. And wow, now you don't have
pot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's back to heroin. A lot of the times why heroin's brown on the streets is the cutting agents. Real pharmaceutical heroin looks like morphine. It's clear. So that's what we're starting to see with the repeal of prohibition is that, hey, drugs aren't bad, but they're not really that good for you either. And we're starting to see research come out like from Dr. Carl Hart that's actually starting to disprove the notion of addiction. And that's important research that we should have had 20 to 30 years ago if we wouldn't have had our heads up our asses.
All right, guys, we're going to start wrapping up. I'd like to talk to you about two things. One, future events that y'all are going to be doing that people can come out to and support. But before that, I'd like to know, are you worried that it's going to be completely legalized? Because then what do you do with your free time? Are you just going to flip and be like, nah, now we're going to try to make it illegal again because I got something to do.
Just to see if you can do it.
Just whatever you can do. Or is that's it? Take off the shirts, put them up, and I got 40 free hours a week back. I can play video games now.
There'll always be something to fight for.
People keep joking that we're going to put ourselves out of a job, and I like to remind them that we don't get paid for this. So the fact is, even if tomorrow we changed the laws and made them perfect, which would never happen.
Right.
We're going to have to compromise a lot on laws, especially in Texas, when it comes to marijuana, I think. But even if we made the law perfect tomorrow, there's still going to be people out there tomorrow that are going to try to reverse that law. And so there's always going to need to be somebody willing to defend the sensible side of the law, for one. For two, we're always going to stand for responsible use of cannabis. The difference between a lot of these groups out there, they want to see marijuana legalized or, used for medical purposes. NORML actually represents all cannabis consumers, whether or not you acknowledge that you're a medical user or not. If you're a spiritual user or if you're just a whatever type of user, NORML represents you. And so we'll always represent responsible use and educate people on what the difference between just using marijuana is and using it responsibly is. And like I said, just continue to defend the idea of freedom for people and make sure that the laws don't ever go back to where they're currently at. There's always going to be a lobbyist out there who's going to try to push us back to where we're currently at. And so NORML will always have a job in basically defending freedom once we are able to attain it.
Great. It's the Knights of NORML. I like that.
Knights.
That's
not too bad, actually.
So, all right. Well, let's talk about some future events that are coming up. First of all, how can people reach y'all to join the group or send you funny cat pictures? That seems to be a big thing on the internet.
Cat pictures go to Sean at dfwnormal.org. For real though, check us out, dfwnormal.org. That's where all of our updates for all of our upcoming meetings are. We'll have
a Facebook page as well.
We do have a Facebook page.
NORML with an A or NORML without an A?
Without an A. It's dfwnorml, NORML.org. And then on Facebook, DFW space NORML. We'll pull up both of our Facebook pages. And we have our calendars on there as well.
And our monthly meetings, we have a monthly meeting every month on the last Saturday of the month at 4:20 p.m. It alternates locations between Dallas, Fort Worth, and Arlington. This next month we're at Wits End in Dallas for September. And then I'm not sure what our October and November
We haven't
are.
figured it out.
Yeah. But those are posted on our website as well as on our Facebook pages.
And we're talking about hosting a movie coming up soon. We're going to, hopefully, if we can find out about it and we can tell you on the show for our fans at home.
That is an idea, actually.
We'd definitely love to have them get out.
In fact, I can promise you we can help break that here, actually, on your show if you'll have us back on.
Yeah,
Once I have the confirmation
as soon as you find
this
back,
week.
you're invited for an exclusive, a Fun Time Good Show exclusive.
Cool.
It'll be our first, I think. Normally we get nothing.
And this is going to be a big movie. People will definitely hear about it. It's going to have a ton of screenings throughout the country, and we're going to make sure that Dallas is represented there. But the next big event that we have is our annual Tardy Halloween party. Everybody always tends to be busy on Halloween, especially those of us with kids. So the thought behind a Tardy Halloween party is have it a day after Halloween so you can spend Halloween with your family and take your kids trick-or-treating or do whatever it is you need to do. And then the next day, you can go and buy yourself a really, really, really cheap costume and come out and have an awesome Halloween party a day late with NORML because it's not late. Or if it's not NORML, it's not late. We like to do everything just a little bit behind the curve sometimes just because we want to make sure we pick up everybody. So on November, what is it, 1st?
November 1st.
Yeah, November 1st, the day after Halloween, we're actually returning to Lola's Saloon in Fort Worth. And we will have the F&As playing. We will have,
Right? Oh, I love it.
yeah, and it's their first time playing now that they've got a new guitarist, Alex. We've also been speaking to another local artist named Son of Swan, who may be performing in our event.
I know a couple of artists that might have an interest in performing.
Oh, I'm sure.
at
I've
your
got
event.
an inbox full of artists who are interested in performing, and we try to expose as many of those as we can.
Snoop Dogg, not this time. Look, you've got your plate.
We met Snoop Dogg, actually, and we smoked in his tent when he was
really?
here in Dallas. We didn't smoke with him, unfortunately, but we smoked his tent out before he arrived at the St. Patty's Day, and then we got kicked out of his tent because we weren't supposed to be in there.
Smoked with Ralphie May too.
Yeah, well, you did. But yeah, so November 1st is going to be great. Lola's is an awesome venue. They're super supportive of NORML. They actually have a lot of our stickers on their tip jars. It's a great venue, a great patio, great place to listen to live music. And so we're going to have some awesome music, some speakers, prizes, glass blowing. It's just going to be a good event for adults to come out and enjoy a little bit of freedom and celebrate NORML and kind of have the Halloween event that they want to without having to bring their kids along.
Great.
There's
Well,
a costume contest as well.
Oh,
5
really?
different categories of costumes, so check that out.
Because I'm really excited. Hold on, computer's giving me some kind of crazy warning here.
Yeah, we had Kenny Powers randomly show up to last year's
Kenny
Halloween.
motherfucking
Nice.
Powers.
All right.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with Nick Calley, who's promoting something. Honestly, I don't even know or care. But
promoting beard shampoo.
They paid the
Beards.
money. They paid the money, so they get a spot. I want to say thank you to the guys from NORML and the lovely young lady Loretta
Thank you.
for coming in and talking to us about a very serious issue, but one that looks like it's kind of heading in the right direction. So, folks, thank you very much, and you're welcome for getting to be on our show.
Thanks, man. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you so
no
much.
problem. It was a real pleasure. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back with Nick Calley. Yeah, we're
I saw her dancing down by the vending machine. I knew she must be about 17. Beat was going strong, play my favorite song, and I could tell it wouldn't be long till she was with me, yeah, babe. And I could tell it wouldn't be long till she was with me, yeah, babe. Singing, I love rock and roll, turn it down to the jukebox, baby.